Hey everybody, Dr. C here. I'm continuing my conversation today about ways you can manage your own pain. As I've discussed in an earlier video, I break things down into 4 basic components. There's detox, there's ambulate, there's hydrate, and there's meditate. And then caffeinate, which is sort of a minor pillar of pain relief, but can be useful at times. Today I'm going to get started on the meditate pillar of pain relief. Basically, how you can use your brain to control your pain. I'm going to start off with a little bit of history because I think it's important to discuss. We've known that the brain can control pain dating back quite some time. In fact, there's research evidence dating back to World War II when a research physician named Beecher was interviewing soldiers who were injured on the landing at Normandy. And what he found was that the soldiers that were injured but were alive and able to conduct an interview had very little pain, at least initially. And his theory was that they were so happy to have survived the battle that the pain was not that important to them. Since then, we've learned a little bit more about how the mind controls pain, but this was actually a pretty good start. Later came a researcher named Paul Ekman, and Ekman did a lot of work with facial expressions initially. He was spending a lot of time trying to understand what muscles create what facial expressions. The face is filled with different muscles, and they're all under the control of our central nervous system, and they're responsible for smiling or raising your eyebrows or frowning. And what he found was that as he spent all day in his laboratory trying to figure out how to activate specific muscles to smile, for example, that his mood was better. And the corollary was also true. He found that as he spent the day in his laboratory trying to figure out how to appear angry, that he experienced a sense of anger by the end of the day, or sadness if he was trying to display facial expressions of sadness. And he published several very interesting papers on this. It wasn't really the point of his research, at least initially, but it was groundbreaking in that it showed us that mood can change with changes in expression. So the old adage that if you smile, the world smiles with you, turns out to be true. And if you frown alone? Well, not necessarily. Maybe you attract more frowning, and maybe you wind up being surrounded by negative moods, and that further dampens your mood. Why is this important? Because we know that the mind has a great deal of control over how we perceive our pain. And we've used psychological therapy for quite some time to try and help people who have no obvious remedy for their pain to learn how to overcome the pain that they suffer. So the way you need to look at this is your brain has a lot of power and actually has a great deal of ability to control or limit your pain. It may not completely eliminate it, but it certainly can dampen it. And I have seen this at work over the last 25 years in my medical practice, day in and day out, that patients that learn to master their mood are the patients that get better. It's such an important factor that I've labeled it one of the 4 pillars of pain relief. I call it meditate because it rhymes, but basically it is learning how to use your brain to control your pain. There's been other research describing this phenomenon. One of the early studies using Botox was published by a guy named Davis back in 2010. And what he discovered was that patients who had their face injected with Botox in order to treat wrinkles had blunted mood, because what we know about Botox is that it will limit your ability to express yourself with facial muscles because it paralyzes them for a period of time. So you have trouble smiling, fully smiling, activating all the muscles of smiling, or frowning and activating all the muscles of frowning. And as a result, you don't feel these emotions as deeply while those muscles are paralyzed or partially paralyzed. And he did publish this work, and it's since been reproduced If you're interested in some of these studies, I'm going to put them in the links below so that you can see them. And I've given you their names. You can follow up on this on your own. But it's really quite fascinating how we express ourselves can change the way we feel. And in fact, this is what behavioral therapy is all about. Behavioral therapy, which basically means demonstrating behaviors that somebody without pain would demonstrate, like learning to walk upright, not bent over, holding your back, or not holding your head because your head hurts, but learning to just act normally even though you're experiencing pain. And the idea is that as you change your behaviors, you'll actually change the way you feel. You can impact the way you perceive your pain. This is not hocus pocus. This is just well-established psychological management of chronic pain. Behavioral therapy is often combined with cognitive therapy. This is simply thinking differently. So many patients with pain will say, oh man, I'm not going to be able to do this today because my pain is going to overwhelm me and I'm going to be miserable, so I might as well not try. And it turns out that just thinking about your pain and how it's going to negatively impact your life will actually negatively impact your life. And so combining behavioral therapy, learning how to change the way you move your body and hold yourself despite the pain, and cognitive therapy, which is changing the way that you think about your pain, are combined into one of the most powerful tools that we have for relieving chronic pain, cognitive behavioral therapy. And if you take a look anywhere on the internet or open any self-help pain book, you will find cognitive behavioral therapy as a cornerstone of the management of chronic pain. This isn't about convincing you that your pain isn't real. It's about helping you understand how your brain can shape the way that you experience your pain and how your actions can shape the way that you experience your pain. Another author wrote a very interesting book called The Brain That Changes Itself. His name is Doidge, D-O-I-D-G-E, I think. I'll also put a link to his work in the links below so that you can explore it. He wrote a book called The Brain That Changes Itself, in which he detailed very well how behavior and thinking can actually alter the neurophysiology of our brains. And his work was fairly early in our understanding of neuroplasticity. And we now know through advanced imaging techniques such as PET scan and functional magnetic resonance imaging that simply changing the way you think and act will change the way that your brain processes pain. And this is something that I really need you to understand, because the rest of these videos on the meditate pillar of chronic pain are going to be dependent on you understanding that you do actually have control over the way you experience your pain. This is not me telling you that your pain is in your head, or that if you just wish it away, that it's going to go away. But it is me telling you that you actually have quite a bit of control over your pain, and the way you approach thinking about it and living with it will have an enormous impact on how you live the rest of your life. If you found this material interesting, please like and subscribe to this video. I have no way of knowing if this material is useful to you if I don't get feedback. Also, if you have any questions, please put a question in the comment section. I do read them, and while I may not get back to you individually, I will review the questions, and if there's interest in a particular topic, I'll make additional videos that expand on this information. Thanks for watching.